The following song to please your eardrums will Chappelle intro by The Silent Partner. Today we'll be featuring their music, which was all provided by freemusicarchive.org, which features podcast-safe music for your pleasure. Now today we have a special guest, and he has come to address the problems with the high-class medical device supply chain and how RFID, radio frequency identification, can bring a more effective organized chain. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Dr. Med Packer. So how are you doing this morning, Dr. Pack? Good, DJ Tony Z. Glad to be here. Well, Dr. Packer, the first thing I must ask is, what is wrong with the high-class medical device supply chain? Well, the first things first, we have to get into the steps of the supply chain. One of them being the 5 to 6, depending on how you look at it, being the manufacturer, the sterilization, distribution center, the sales representative, hospital storage room to the patient. The first step, the manufacturer, basically consists of manufacturing the actual medical device and putting it within its packaging, and which will be shipped out to be sterilized. And once it's sterilized, which may come in the form, for example, ETO sterilization, it'll go to the distribution center, in which at the distribution center it'll be put into many different segments in order to be shipped out to many different hospitals, depending on where they're needed and who the clients are for that respective manufacturer. And sometimes you have a sales rep that will go ahead and just take some of those packages from the distribution center and take it directly to the hospital. This step is variable. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. It honestly depends on who the manufacturer is. There's some companies that do it. There's some companies that don't. It just depends. And the next step, whether it is through the distribution center straight to the hospital, the sales representative to the hospital, it goes into the hospital into a storage room waiting to be used. Now, once it's in the hospital, it's going to go to the patient who, the doctor's obviously going to perform on. Now, some of the problems that occur when you have this type of supply chain is there's a lack of communication between the hospital and manufacturer. At times, there's usually bad inventory checks since it's done by humans, so sometimes there'll be too many devices or a shortage. There won't be organization to know when each device expires or not. And the other thing is that sometimes hospitals overcompensate, meaning that they'll buy a lot of devices and then return the devices to the manufacturers in order to have a cheaper price on devices. This results in increases for device prices, longer patient wait times, and not knowing what to produce in terms of a manufacturer's term point of view. So all these problems just don't help at all. Okay, so can you now explain RFID technology to our morning listeners? Of course, there are four main components within RFID technology, the four being tags, readers or interrogators, antennas, and a host computer. Now with tags we have active tags, semi-passive tags, and passive tags. Both active tags and semi-passive tags have batteries within them. Now these batteries make it so that the signals can have a wider range. Now active tags will naturally have that signal sending out, waiting for the reader to read upon the signal. With semi-passive tags, although you have that extra range, there aren't signals being sent out. The signals are being waited on the reader, so it's kind of a combination between the active tags and the passive tags, which I'll get into now. The passive tags do not have battery within them and therefore have a shorter range, but the reader can still detect it and get the signals to it. Granted, it is a shorter range. And the second part is the readers or the interrogators. The readers basically allow for the device to be read, and that's through antennas, which is our next part. The antennas make it so that the readers and the tags can communicate with one another. And the last part that we have is the host computer. Now a host computer takes in all the data collected by the reader and basically makes it so, organizes it and collects it so anybody who needs to read it can read it. And now there are certain advantages over RFID technology over barcodes, some being that RFID tags can be scanned without a line of sight. So basically, with the barcode, you have to actually scan and see the barcode to scan it. You don't have to do that with RFID technology. And other reasons are multiple items can be scanned at once. You can carry and manipulate more data with RFID, and they're hard to remove from the packaging, as well as can survive harsh environments. But at the end of the day, we'll still need barcodes. The FDA has implemented UDI, which is Unique Device Identification Systems, and that requires human readability, which RFID tags do not provide, for the simple fact that it's just a tag. There's no type of font or anything on it, so you couldn't read anything off of the tag even if you wanted to, so that's why we still need barcode. Okay, those were quite the explanations of the RFID tags as well as the medical supply chain. We'll be back with more after this song.
Through the mirror of my mind, time after time, I see reflections of you and me, reflections of the way life used to be, reflections of the love you took from me.
Well, that was Funk Bros by The Silent Partner. Once again, that podcast, Family Music, was provided by freemusicarchive.org. Well, Dr. Packer, getting back into our discussion, how can RFID help organize such a distorted supply chain? Well, something that I thought of along the lines was using those readers that we discussed earlier to be put into the receiving area and to the door of the storage rooms at the hospitals. Now, the purpose of the readers would be to read all the products that came through the receiving areas and into the storage room. So now, by doing this, you have an inventory. All this information would go to the host computer, which you would set up. So that way you would know how much and what of how many of the products that you had. Now, once you have that, you can also have workers have their IDs require RFID technology on them as well. So that way, when they go to either the receiving room to move the product or to take the product from the storage room to the doctor to go to the patient, they have to verify who they are and at what time of day they got the product. So this is going to counter any type of stealing of the products, which could later be brought out to the black market. Now, this is an informal plan. This is nothing that's been done and or tested. So, hopefully as the technology advances, we could see what would happen with something like that implemented. Okay, that sounds great. So, why has nothing like this been implemented before? Well, Tony Z, like with most technology, it has flaws. Back in 2005, an experiment was done at Michigan State University, and it tested the readability of the RFID tags. For example, they used an empty box in one case, and within the empty box, there was still flaws with readings. It didn't exactly read every single tag within that box. As well as that, tag orientation and product interference are huge variables. So like, let's say if you have water, something metallic, it can reflect the signals off the products. Another issue that the industry has is money. The cost of the RFID tags are not cheap. The passive being the cheapest is 20 cents, and that's quite expensive per tag when you add all up per device. Okay, Dr. Packer, that's all the time we have for today. On behalf of WPKG 1452, we appreciate your time for coming up here. Well, thanks for having me, Tony Z. Well, now my segment is done. Here's one last song by The Silent Partner called TSP and the Moon. Have a great morning, ladies and gentlemen.